Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Deborah Peters, and this is the Deborah Peters Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to do a little bit of a different experience for you. And before I get into that, let me just share with you what this show is all about in case you're wondering what our agenda is and what our mandate is. So our agenda, I suppose, is to give you the tools to come into your own awareness of yourself, meaning where you create a relationship between your lower self, like the part of you that goes through the motions of every single day, and then your higher self, the part of you that is guided by your creator, whatever your belief system is, and is moving you forward into greater and greater alignment with your soul's mission in this life. And so that is what we're all about. And, you know, the mantra is really, or maybe the value proposition is to give you the tools within that realm to raise your consciousness. And your consciousness is all about who you're allowing yourself to be and how much self-awareness you have, how much you tune into yourself and let yourself be guided from within instead of looking outside of you for the answers, and really taking good stock of your life. And we cover 5 main pillars. So health, wealth, relationship, self-expression, and of course business, because without business, where would the money come from? You know, so that's really the whole point of the show. And typically I have on phenomenal guests. Every Tuesday we run live at 12 noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. And today I decided to do something a little bit different so you could get all of your questions answered. So whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching the recording, you can still send in your questions. And I do pay attention to the comments that are made online and do my best to answer them all personally. I don't have a staff member doing that. Nobody from my team is doing it. It's me. And so that way you get like a real true answer to your question from a neuroscience perspective and also a business perspective as well. So a little bit of background about me. I've been a business coach now for a little over 20 years. And I have a background in neuroscience. It's not all self-taught. A large portion of it is, and the rest of it has been continual coursework. I'm an avid reader. I like to, I've made a switch recently and switched from, spending so much time staring at a screen to actually reading real books again, paper with ink on top. I have to say, it's really been a good shift for me on a health level. I get to these points, like yesterday I was working not that early, like I think it might have been 8 a.m. and I was at my computer and I was working away. By 3 o'clock, man, I was done. And it was a physiological response. I just could not stare at my computer screen another second. The light, just all of it. I'm like, I have to walk away. And I have actually found that by doing so, I'm more productive. Back in the day, I would have pushed myself. I would have overrode any sort of physical feelings like headaches, stiff shoulders, sore back, tight neck. I would have just like overrode that, maybe taken a painkiller, just like powered through no matter how I felt. And I don't do that to myself anymore. I'm just like really practicing self-love. And I'm actually getting a whole lot more done. And it's enabled me to expand my team and to bring in people that can bring their expertise in. And the growth has been a lot greater as a result of that, rather than me trying to do more. So I guess that's every entrepreneur's dream, right? Is to scale your business. But thank you for joining me today. The topic today is all about expanding your identity. So expanding your identity is a term that we use that will enable you to take yourself beyond your current relationship that you have with yourself, like how you view yourself. So let's talk a little bit, first of all, let's kind of unpack this. Let's talk a little bit about identity. What's identity? So first of all, identity is typically something that we consider to be, our name, what's on our driver's license, what's in our passport, what's on our birth certificate. It's something that's been assigned to us. And, on a psychological level, where it's not really that far from the truth. So, and that's the part of the identity that I'm going to be addressing today. I'm going to be addressing the identity that you have accepted, taken on, and perpetuated throughout your lifetime, whether you were consciously aware of it or not. So first out of the chute, I want to say that there's no right or wrong way to be. And that this show is not about making you wrong. It's just, I want to point out some of the things that we're unconscious of doing, so that if we're not getting the results in our lives, then we can actually make the changes we want to make with the least amount of effort. And, as a coach for the last 20 some years, and I've traveled the world and had, just like the blessing of speaking at events in 19 countries and addressing heads of state and negotiating trade agreements and working with federal agencies like the FBI. And it's been an incredible, incredible journey that has actually enabled me on a very personal level to shed an identity that would have never even had the wherewithal to figure out how to do all that. So I'm coming from a really organic place here. I'm not trying to tell you something that I haven't done for myself, and then also for, tens of thousands of clients that I've worked with over the last 20 years. So look, we're all born into environments that perhaps we see them as not being our choosing. But if you really want to dig deeper into it and go down below the surface of that, we do choose our families. We do choose the environments we're born into on a much bigger planned scale than our egos. Because if I were to look back at my upbringing, which I happen to be rewriting right now, I'm going to share that tip with you. I would adamantly argue with you that I did not choose that family. Like, hell no. But I did. And I accept that I had a play in it. I had a say in it. And it actually turned into the wind beneath my sails of me, the kite, flying above the mountaintops. I turned those lemons into lemonade and really made a phenomenal life out of it. I don't want to get into the details of that. If you want, you can go to my YouTube channel. I've done several videos on the pathology that I grew up with and how I shook that off. But let's pick up where we are now, and let's move you forward toward the goals and dreams that you have that maybe have not actualized yet. Maybe you haven't realized them. They're in you, and you want them and you desire them, but for some reason they're just not coming. I'll give you an example of this. I worked with this CEO for years. He started several companies, and we became good friends over the years. And whenever he would launch a new company, he would call me and say, can you come in and help me launch this and build this team and take this off the ground to the next level. And then sometimes beyond that, because that's where he would start to lose interest, was keeping it going past the initial phase of the exhilaration of starting something from nothing. And then I would step in and I would help it continue on until there was another mind or energy that could come in and could move that company beyond that. And through that experience with him, I watched him spin his wheels on certain aspects of business growth. And it really just, when I would work with him, I would point out his contribution to that so he could get some kind of clarity around how his, we might call it self-image, but his identity was actually holding him back from taking that organization to the next level. And so the basis of that always comes from how you were programmed and conditioned from age 0 to 7. And that is such a critical time. I know I've talked about that a lot in pretty much every one of my broadcasts. I just can't say it enough, because that program, those programs and that conditioning actually dominates your psychology, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And that could be a good thing and that could be a bad thing. On the good side of things, maybe you've been programmed for wealth and success and social status, and that's something you enjoy. So, it's not like something that you really had to reach for hard or work for hard, because maybe you came from generations. And listen, I just want to do a caveat here. I'm not bashing anyone that's wealthy. I would never do that. As a matter of fact, I'm fascinated by people that are wealthy, and I want to learn from them, because obviously if I don't have the wealth they have, there's something I can learn. And no, I don't believe that all wealthy people are crooks. So that's like, if that's your belief system, then you probably need to go evolve a little bit before you come through my show. And so let's say you're born into that, and you're really quite accepting of your ability to create wealth, to create social standing, to create financial freedom that maybe other people just dream of. And it looks really easy for others to watch you. They're like, wow, this person just really, has had it all handed to them, and they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And perhaps, but what were they really born with was a consciousness around money and a consciousness around wealth. Now, maybe they have shortcomings in other areas of their life. That doesn't make them perfect. It doesn't mean that, because you have the capacity to create wealth and create ideas that turn into wealth, doesn't mean that, you don't have other issues or other psychological shortcomings. None whatsoever. That's why we have to take these people off of a pedestal. And instead of wanting, first of all, instead of disapproving of them, we need to look at them and go, okay, what do they know that I don't know? And then secondly, instead of wanting to be them, just learn the tools they've used mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, to create what they've created, and then model those. But the thing is that your identity is going to be what either hamstrings you from moving into your goals and actualizing them, or it's going to be what really drives the bus and enables you to conquer any obstacle that comes across your path, which, by the way, is always self-induced, which is another conversation, and actually just move through it and experience the goal. So it really does come down to the internal identity that we have. And absolutely, if you're born into a situation where you're put down or abused or neglected, or you've been through shock or trauma as a child, first of all, I'm very, very sorry that you've had that experience. And secondly, I want you to know that you can rewire anything. You can repattern anything. You can create a new identity for yourself just through the power of your thought. I knew that was going to come in. So I knew I was going to get that call right in the middle of my podcast. So the thing is that you can actually retrain yourself to have a completely different identity. And so that's really what we want to focus on today. Let me send up this text really quick and just say that I will call them back. And so, all right, sorry about that. Where was I? I was on the identity part of you. Getting really clear on what your identity is really the key. That's the key to everything. If you don't know what your identity is, then you can't really change it. And so what are you going to do to actually change that? I'm going to have to multitask for a second, so forgive me. It starts with an intention, and that intention has to be deliberate. When you have a really clear intention, it always comes to fruition when you put your belief and your knowingness into it. So essentially, that's what happens to us as we accept and perpetuate these programs that we get from our environment, from our parents, from the people that we spend time with, the people that are around us. When we accept those patterns and we become them, we lose an understanding or an awareness of the demarcation line between who we really are and who other people have said that we are. So here's some really first steps that you can take. Number one, understand that the identity that you've created about yourself is really just what fits in this, square box. It's not really who you are. It's a belief system. It's a thought process. It's an emotional program that then when you give it attention, it actually carries on and builds and creates more of the same, unfortunately. Unless it's a good belief system, unless it's a good thought process, and then it actually works in your favor. The beauty of that is all of that is malleable and you can change all of it. The first thing you need to understand about that identity is that it acts as a filter for how you see everything in life. So if you were to say, I don't wear glasses, but let's say I wore glasses and you were to put these glasses on and you had tinted lenses, it would change the way you saw the world. That tinting of that lens would make the world look different. It would give it a different color. It would give it a different sort of sheen, if you will. And that's exactly what your identity does when your self-identity, when you look through it to the world and what it is that you would like to create. So what happens with that is we actually, let's say it's on the negative, let's say it's holding you back. What it actually does is it clouds your perception of reality. It clouds your perception of possibilities. And it leads you to believe that whatever the goal is that you want, whatever you desire to create, that it's always out there. Whenever we put something out there, there's a lot of things that happen with that. Like there's a lot of dynamics that take place with that. So let's say we put something out there and suddenly we lose control of the thing that we put out there. I'm going to teach you a trick today to actually, rather than, which I think most coaches and most trainers do this, they teach you to put your goals out there. I don't teach that. That to me, that's antiquated technology for achieving goals. I teach you how to bring whatever it is that you want to experience to you. like an energy pull, rather than putting your goals out there, because so much can go wrong when you put your goals out there. Other people's energy can stomp all over those goals. Other people's doubts and fears can get in the way. Other people's limitations of what, and I mean, think about it. Every time you have a goal, it has to include other people. It's not going to be something that you just 100% do all by yourself forever. It's always going to involve other people. And so whenever you put your goals out there, that those goals are going to be laced with your identity. It's going to be like this. So you've got the goal, you've got the identity, and it's going to be packaged up emotionally intertwined. And the problem with that, on one hand, there's always two sides to the coin. The problem with that on one hand is that, let's say this is the goal, and let's say this is the identity, and the identity is not in alignment with the goal. Let's say the identity says, I'm not worthy of this goal. Now you intertwine that. So now you've got like this resistance energy, this I want it, but I can't have it. I want this, but I don't know how. I want this, but there's lots of other people doing it. I want this, but I don't have the money to start this up. I want this, but I failed in the past. It's like the push me, pull you kind of resistance that, like, literally, derails the goal. Then you put that out into the world for approval from others. It's like, what do you think of this? I'm doing this. What do you think of this? And oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. I used to do that. I used to get so excited. About what I was creating that, I would go to my circle and I would share it with them. And man, sometimes that would just like knock the wind right out of my sails. Other times, they would jump on board with me and they would agree with me, but that was as far as it went. And then suddenly, I had dispelled all of this vital energy, all of this vibrational essence of my goal out into the world and lost it. Like the vitality of the goal just dissipated. It just disappeared. And then those goals just didn't, they just didn't come to fruition. So the hardest lesson I believe I've learned is to stop talking about my goals. I don't talk about my goals with anybody. And as a coach, of course, I'm talking to my clients about their goals, but I'm holding space for them to bring those goals to fruition. I'm not putting up any energetic blocks or vibrational discord around what it is they're seeking to create. I'm backing them up. I've got their back, So this is probably the biggest issue for most people, I think, in my observation over the last 20 years is, they have these amazing goals, but their identity doesn't match the grandiose, perhaps, of the goal. And they just keep trying and they just keep working at it. And then they doubt themselves and they're like, why isn't this happening? What's wrong with me? And that's the last question you want to ask of yourself. Never ask what's wrong with me, because it's a black hole. You can always find a million things that are wrong with you, and it never ends. It never ends. So the key here is to, first of all, you want to expand your identity before you start to put too much forward movement into your goal. Pardon me. And the way you expand your identity is literally creating an energy ball in front of you. If you go to my YouTube channel, there's a whole video on doing an energy pull. You can just do it in your mind. You can sit in a chair in a meditative state. You can actually hold your hands out about the size of a basketball, and you can imagine putting these things, these ideas, these notions, these perceptions about your identity into this energy ball until you filled it up with all the aspects of who you are becoming. And then you bring that into your heart and you let yourself integrate you with you. Because your identity is a reflection of you. And you need to bring that internal. I think where a lot of people get tripped up, and most coaches don't teach this, is that we do too much external with our ideas and with our action steps, looking for the result to come. And it doesn't, because of two things. One, we haven't expanded our identity to be in alignment with, to resonate with the goal, to be on the same vibration as the goal. And in fact, we usually have this conflict where our identity says, you can't have that, you can't do that, you can't be that. I've been working with one fellow that has a construction company, and one of his things was a childhood belief system of not out earning his father. So, he gets really close to his shifting into a whole other level of revenue, and then boom, slides back down because, he's got this unconscious agreement in his identity that it would be shameful to outgrow and out earn his father. Like, how would his father feel like a man? And all of this stuff is just these made up perceptions of reality that if you actually take them out into the world and verbalize them, you'll find tons of people that agree with you and commiserate with you and support you in your limitation. That is the last thing you need. And that's another reason why I don't share my ideas and my goals with people anymore. It's just, you're always going to find the naysayers and the buzzkills and the haters that are unhappy in their own realms, that are going to come back on you with some kind of negative comment, or even if it's not even. What if they have a smile on their face and they're pretending to your face that they got you, but they don't, that they're actually secretly hoping you fail because they're jealous? It's such a hard thing to get my head around, that that's actually how people are, but it's true. I've worked with so many people over the years, and I've just seen so much when it comes to human engineering, and I'm just blown away at how some people are just so mean-spirited and yet wonder why they're not happy. But it's another conversation. So definitely this is about expanding your identity. And I always start with, how do I feel about myself? I like to get up in the morning and, hit the loo. And while I'm in the bathroom, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm saying, hey, good morning. I love you. Welcome to this new day. Whose lives can we bless today? That's how I start every single day. It makes such a difference. It turns all the calls I need to return and all the emails I need to send and all the text messages I need to do into like this joyful experience, because I'm starting off with self-love. I'm not starting off with, oh my God, I have to go deal with this business today. And don't get me wrong, guys, I've had those moments where I'm just like, oh, this business is just so frustrating, and coaching people and they don't appreciate it and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you really just have to focus on how you feel about you and put it out to the world in a way that is enjoyable to you, and then let people roll with it as they may and not worry about it. So the big key here is that you stop looking for external validation. Please, I had this discussion with a lady that was in my mastermind back in June. And I was saying the point I just said to you about keep your goals and your ideas and your visions and your dreams to yourself until you've developed them to the point where they have good momentum and they can stand on their own. They've taken on that energy. And she was wanting to make this point that she always shares hers with people because she wants their feedback. My question was, how's that working out for you? Look, if it's working for you, if you're going out there and you're telling the whole world, this is what I'm doing, what do you think? And you're finding value in that, and it's not slowing down your process or hijacking your expansion and growth, then maybe that's something that works for you. I just know from a vibrational perspective, keeping the vibration tight, keeping the energy tight within you so that you don't dissipate the very ideas that are trying to come from within, whether it's a download from your creator, something you picked up through the Akashic records, or it's been percolating within you as part of your soul mission for a long time and you've just never addressed it or given it any value. Just give it some space, it's like, give it some space to be able to step into itself, and then keep it fueled with the right thoughts and the right visualizations, and most importantly with the right feelings, because it's twofold. So it's a visualization and it's a feeling, but it's the feeling that makes the difference. So you can send out the visual, like, I want this in my life. I want this experience in my life. I'd like this goal in my life. And, but what brings it back, because that sends it out to the universe energetically or vibrationally, and then what brings it back in as a realization or an actualization, I'm not going to call it a manifestation, I'll tell you why. It brings it in as a realization or an actualization based on your feeling, being in the feeling of it as if it is already yours. And there's lots of scripture on that. So if you're not on my email list, I'm always sending out scripture every weekend as part of my weekend wisdom email. You're welcome to subscribe. The thing is that there needs to be an energetic, like you're building up that energy within you. And there needs to be clarity on what that is. So you're expanding your self-image. How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? There's our model of the world, that programming and conditioning that we were born with. Then there's our new perceptions of reality that we're building and developing every single day. Hopefully you are, and you're not just regurgitating the old ones. And then there's the possibilities that lie out in the ethers that you sense are coming. You've got like sparks of them, but you haven't actually embraced them to get the clarity on them yet. So there's a lot of dynamics going on here with your self-identity. You do not have to be the identity that you were at any point in your life, because we're never the same. Our organs are regenerating, our skin's regenerating, our hair and nails are regenerating, like everything is new. It has a cycle to it, it has a gestation phase, and then it sloughs off, but everything is new. And you can become a new you anytime you want to. And how are you going to know that this is actually working? Well, my favorite litmus test is to go through a personal growth spurt and then go home for a family holiday and just see if people even recognize you. Not 10 out of 10 times they won't. Like they might. I actually had my granddaughter said to me one day, she's like, wow, they call me Nona. She goes, wow, Nona, you're different. And I was like, thank you. You know, clearly the meditations I've been doing, the prayers, the intention setting, you know, I got my little morning routine. I teach it to my clients. It's been working. And I've been creating a different energy about myself, which then emanates in a new way out into the world because people respond to us energetically. We think that people respond to how we look. Um, that's secondary. Just like I said before, visualizing is one thing, but it's the feeling that makes the difference. And this works on the reverse. So it's, you know, you might look good and you're all suited up, but if you're not in a good place vibrationally, it's always going to be the feeling that makes the difference in who's drawn to you and for what reason. So, what have we covered so far? It's the feeling that's the secret. Yes, the visualization helps, but when you blend the feeling into it, that's really important. And it's the self-identity. And you don't have to accept, you certainly don't have to perpetuate who you were told you were as a child, as an adult. In fact, you don't have to perpetuate anything anyone's ever told you about you ever in your life. You don't have to take any of that on. Usually it's just a projection. You know, I had this one client that signed up for one of my leadership retreats, and then we ran into each other at a networking meeting, and I said to the group that I had decided to join their group, and he lost his mind because I didn't join his group, and he thought that because I came to his group first, that I owed it to him to join his group. So therefore, I wasn't a reputable person, and he couldn't learn from me, and he wouldn't come to the retreat. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you have no idea what it is you're projecting here. And so I got on a phone call with him because I'm not going to fight with anybody in an email or a text message. And I'm not going to fight with anybody over anything, frankly. And I just asked him, so what is this really about? And it finally, like 2/3 of the way through the conversation of him screaming at me and me just like trying to calm him down, he said, you remind me of my ex-wife. And I was like, oh, so that's really what it's about. You're triggered about some unresolved emotional issues with your ex-wife. I don't know what that's about, but it has nothing to do with me. And I just rebuked it. And I just said, you know, I rebuke you. In the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. And you could, you know, just go deal with yourself. So I think this is what we have to do, is we have to learn that our identity is ours for the making. And it's never static. It's going to be something that evolves and changes as your experiences in life take you down these different paths that open up your consciousness, open up your awareness to seeing the world differently, maybe changing your perception of reality, looking at yourself with some wonderment instead of some criticism. And, you know, it's interesting because we live and die by the quality of our self-talk. Most people have really negative self-talk, and that's the number one thing that I recommend you get reined in. It's the first thing I started working on with myself, and you know, as a result of the experience I had in changing up my personal identity and my relationship with myself, I was able to then teach that to my clients. You see, everything is about repetition as an adult. As a child, it's different. Between 0 and 7, we're like sponges, and we pretty much accept and believe everything that, you know, the world and adults throw at us. It's like, oh, the world's a horrible place. Okay, my mother says the world's a horrible place, and my dad says that we're all going to hell. Oh, okay, so we're all going to hell. And then we've got this other family where the mother says, you know what, you're the most wonderful child in the world, and you're just a walking miracle. And the dad says, come, daughter or son, let me help you learn this new skill, and your life will be infinitely better. I mean, everybody has a different kind of growth process. The key is to get to this place within yourself where you make a choice. Life is about choices. You got to get to this place within yourself. I'm telling you, some people, they never get there in their lifetime. Like, they kick the bucket and they're still living their past paradigm. So, it's never too late. But get to this place within yourself where you make a choice of aligning with your soul. And regardless whether people accept that, support that, approve of that, complain about it, doesn't matter. You decide, you make a choice that you're going to align with your soul. Now, your soul is the messenger, the container, the relationship that can show you why you're here. When people say, what's the meaning of life? My answer is, you mean the meaning of your life? Yeah. What's the meaning of life? No, the answer is, or maybe the question is, what's the meaning of my life? Well, that's an internal job. No one can tell you what the meaning of your life is. That's something that's between you and you. And having a relationship and getting a connection with your soul, where you're not allowing yourself to be so run, triggered, controlled by external validation and approval, and you actually learn why you're you and why you're on the planet at this time, and what that means for your existence, for your relationships, for how you do business, for how you run your body. It's all consumption, right? And getting in touch with that is an inside job, and it's not to be taken lightly. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to have to put the work in. You might have to shut off your device for an hour a day and spend that time with yourself. You might have to actually make some commitments to yourself to not talk to other people about your life, and not talk to other people about your goals and your dreams, and certainly to never talk to other people about other people, because it's such a waste of time. You could be talking to yourself about your goals. You could be doing all sorts of productive things besides commiserating with other people and gossiping and that kind of stuff. What's fascinating to me about how the law of vibration, which is the background to law of attraction, actually works is, when we put out good energy toward people, they benefit from it rapidly. When we put out bad energy toward people, it damages us quickly. So don't waste your time on that sort of thing. Get in alignment with what your goals are, what your objectives are, and decide who you're going to be. And that's a capital B and a capital E. Who am I being? Not, how much more can I do to be okay, to be loved, to be accepted, to be approved of. All of that is just, it's the matrix. It's a lie. And none of it has any value. Because they're fickle. It's all fickle. They're all fickle. You stand on your head one day this way, and they love you for it, and then tomorrow they hate you for it, and then you got to stand on your head a new way. So the only thing you can really do is work on you, expand your identity. If this is your identity of, this is how much I love myself, this is how much I take care of myself, this is how much wealth I'll allow, this is how much new business I can handle, this is how much I can get done in a day, this is how many amazing relationships I can tolerate for myself. Like, how much amazing life are you willing to allow yourself to experience it? If it fits into this ball, and then your goals are out here, because your goals are big or bigger, and they require a bigger sense of self in order to bring them into fruition, you got to work on yourself. It's not the goal eluding you. It's not the marketplace. It's not the politics. All the politics are crazy, but that's a whole other, not going there. And so you got to get outside of that small circle of you and who you've believed yourself to be. And you have to expand that belief system and practice it and practice it and practice it until it's a knowingness. And no matter who comes along with their projections or judgments or limitations or fears, because fear is a big one these days, until it doesn't have any impact on you. And once you do that a couple times, it'll get really comfortable. And that's what happens when you see people creating and realizing bigger goals and bigger goals and bigger goals. It's like, how do you do it? Well, it's all in how they run their energy, and their identity is a major part of that energy. So I was going to say something, and then I'm going to say goodbye because it's been time. And thanks for tolerating my phone going off in the background. It's hooked to my computer. Couldn't really stop that. Manifesting. Manifesting is not the physical actualization of something. Manifesting is when you get the thought. Now, there's a difference between you manufacturing the thought because it's something that you think you want, and actually having the thought present itself to you as a download. And if you don't know the difference between those two things, then that's where you need to start with your personal growth work. So that you know the difference and you don't get hijacked by your ego telling you that, oh, I want this whatever goal because people will like me and respect me, and then I'll be important and people won't put me down anymore and people can't ignore me. And it's like, it'll never come. If it does, it's not going to be very satisfying. So the thought and the download is actually the manifestation, and then having it show up in physical form is the realization or the actualization. And so, yeah, if you're a manifester, manifesting is a thought, it's not an action. Talk to a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm manifesting this. I'm like, how are you doing that? I'm just like working hard. And I'm like, well, maybe have you tried aligning with it energetically? And they don't know what that is. So now you do. Now you know what it takes to reprogram your identity. And by the way, when it comes to repetition for adults, somewhere between 3, 7, and 21 repetitions, and you have a new pattern. So don't stop before the miracle, hang in there 5 minutes longer. So somewhere between 3, 7, and 21 repetitions. And I'm not talking about just, okay, I'm going to stand in front of the mirror and say it 21 times. I'm talking about alignment, vibrational alignment. And if you don't know what vibrational alignment is, I have 2 retreats coming up this autumn, one October 12th in Savannah, Georgia, and the other one December 7th in Newport Beach, California. So hit me up and I'll give you the information for that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. I just love having this opportunity to share some of this stuff as an organic stream of consciousness, and hopefully you took something away from it. I'd love to have your comments come in. Let me know what you are working on. Let me know what's stalled. What do you need help with? And I'll definitely promise to shoot you back a response. So most importantly, change is afoot again. We're coming into September. We've got some crazy stuff going on, and it's going to hit harder than it has in the last go around, because they have to do something to shake up our nervous system and get us really into that fear zone again. So really important is to get into alignment, meditate, stay aligned, stay alert, pay attention to what's going on around you, keep your head on a swivel, don't believe anything, trust your gut 100% of the time, and stay awake. It's the best way to be able to discern what's real and what's fabricated. So thank you for joining me. I'm Deborah Peters, and I will see you again next Tuesday.